What kind of person calls the police over a barista's eye roll? Karen Mitchell. That's who. She stormed into Brood Awakening on a crisp October morning, her designer purse swinging like a weapon, her heels clicking with the precision of a metronome. The coffee shop hummed with the usual chaos. The hiss of the espresso machine, the chatter of college students, the clink of ceramic mugs. Karen, however, was a storm cloud in human form, her presence sucking the warmth from the room. She didn't just walk to the counter. She marched, her eyes scanning for any slight, real or imagined. The barista, a 20-something named Mia with a nose ring and a tired smile, was already juggling 3 orders. Karen didn't care. She barked her order, a triple shot, no foam, extra hot latte with almond milk, and tapped her manicured nails impatiently. Mia, overworked and underpaid, nodded, her eyes flickering upward for a split second. That was the spark. Karen's face twisted. "Did you just roll your eyes at me?" she snapped, loud enough to make heads turn. Mia froze, her hands hovering over the steamer. "Ma'am, I didn't," she started, but Karen cut her off. "Don't lie to me. I saw it. You think I'm stupid?" The air crackled with tension, customers shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Mia's cheeks flushed, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm sorry if I came off that way. Let me get your order started." Karen wasn't having it. She leaned over the counter, her voice rising to a screech. "You kids have no respect. I'm a paying customer." Mia's co-worker, a lanky teen named Ethan, stepped in, trying to defuse the situation. "Ma'am, let's just get your coffee, okay?" But Karen's fury was a runaway train. She jabbed a finger at Mia. "I want your manager. Now." The manager, a harried woman named Sarah, emerged from the back, wiping her hands on her apron. She listened as Karen ranted, her voice a mix of indignation and entitlement, accusing Mia of disrespect and unprofessionalism. Sarah apologized, offered a free drink, but Karen's eyes gleamed with something darker. "I'm calling the police," she declared, pulling out her phone. The shop fell silent. Customers exchanged glances. A police call? For an eye roll? Mia stood frozen, her hands trembling as she wiped down the counter. Ethan whispered something to her, but she shook her head, her eyes glistening. Sarah tried to reason with Karen. "Ma'am, there's no need for that. Let's resolve this calmly." But Karen was already dialing, her voice dripping with self-righteous glee as she spoke to the dispatcher. "Yes, I'm at Brood Awakening. I've been disrespected by an employee. I demand an officer here immediately." The absurdity hung in the air like smoke. Minutes later, 2 officers arrived, their boots heavy on the hardwood floor. Officer Daniels, a seasoned cop with a no-nonsense demeanor, took the lead. "What's the issue here?" he asked, his tone flat. Karen launched into her tirade, embellishing the story with every word. "This girl rolled her eyes at me, mocked me, and refused to serve me properly. I'm a loyal customer." Mia, barely holding it together, explained her side quietly. "I didn't roll my eyes, sir. I was just trying to do my job." Officer Daniels raised an eyebrow, glancing at Sarah, who corroborated Mia's account. The second officer, a younger woman named Lopez, took notes, her expression unreadable. Karen's voice grew louder, her gestures wilder. "Are you going to do something about this or not?" she demanded. Daniels sighed, clearly unimpressed. "Ma'am, this sounds like a customer service issue, not a police matter." But Karen wasn't done. She pointed at Mia, her voice venomous. "You're lucky I don't sue you for emotional distress." That's when it happened. In a flash of rage, Karen grabbed her half-finished latte from the counter and flung it at Mia. The hot liquid splashed across Mia's apron, soaking her shirt, scalding her skin. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Ethan lunged to Mia's side, and Sarah shouted, "That's enough." Officer Daniels moved swiftly, stepping between Karen and the counter. "Ma'am, you need to calm down. Now." But Karen's eyes were wild, her chest heaving. She didn't see the line she'd crossed. Lopez was already reaching for her cuffs. "You just assaulted someone," Daniels said, his voice like steel. "You're under arrest." Karen's jaw dropped, her purse slipping to the floor. Arrested? For throwing coffee? Are you serious? The cuffs clicked around her wrists, and the reality hit her like a freight train. The coffee shop, once a haven of warmth, was now a battlefield, and Karen had just lost the war. The cuffs were cold against Karen's wrists, a stark contrast to the heat still radiating from her anger. She stood in the middle of brood awakening, her designer coat now crumpled, her face a mask of disbelief. "This is ridiculous," she spat, twisting to glare at Officer Daniels. "I'm the victim here." But the officers weren't listening. Lopez guided her toward the door, her grip firm but professional, while Daniels stayed back to take statements. Mia, still shaken, pressed a damp towel against her scalded arm, her eyes darting between the officers and the mess on the floor. The coffee shop buzzed with whispers, customers craning their necks to watch the spectacle unfold. Outside, the autumn air hit Karen like a slap. The patrol car waited, its lights flashing lazily, drawing curious glances from passers-by. Karen's voice cracked as she pleaded, "You can't do this. I have rights." Lopez, unfazed, opened the car door. "You have the right to remain silent," she said, her tone clipped. Karen's protests faded into a stunned mumble as she slid into the back seat, the door slamming shut with a finality that echoed in her chest. Through the window, she saw Mia standing in the shop's doorway, her apron stained, her expression unreadable. For a fleeting moment, Karen felt a pang, guilt, maybe, or something close to it, but it was quickly drowned by her indignation. Back inside, Daniels knelt beside Mia, his notepad open. "You okay?" he asked, his voice softer now. Mia nodded, though her hands still trembled. "It just happened so fast," she whispered. Sarah, the manager, hovered nearby, her face etched with worry. "She's been under a lot of stress," Sarah said, glancing at Mia. "She doesn't deserve this." Ethan, the teenage barista, chimed in, his voice shaking with anger. "That lady's unhinged. Who throws coffee over an eye roll?" Daniels scribbled notes, his face neutral, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of sympathy. "We'll need your statements," he said, "but it looks like a clear case of assault." As the officers wrapped up, the coffee shop slowly returned to its rhythm. Customers resumed their conversations, though the air felt heavier, tainted by the outburst. Mia tried to focus on steaming milk, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ethan noticed and nudged her gently. "Go take a break," he said. "I've got this." Mia hesitated, then nodded, retreating to the back room. Alone, she leaned against the wall, her breath uneven. The burn on her arm stung, but it was the humiliation that cut deeper. She'd dealt with rude customers before, but this was different. It felt personal, like Karen had seen her as less than human. Meanwhile, at the police station, Karen sat in a stark holding room, her purse confiscated, her phone silent. The reality of her situation was sinking in, but she clung to her narrative. "I was provoked," she told the officer processing her. "That girl disrespected me first." The officer, a bored-looking man with graying hair, didn't look up from his paperwork. "You threw a hot drink at her, ma'am. That's assault." Karen's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she had no retort. The weight of her actions pressed against her, but she pushed it away, focusing instead on her outrage. Someone would pay for this. Her lawyer, the coffee shop, that barista. She wasn't the villain here. She couldn't be. Back at Brood Awakening, a twist emerged that no one saw coming. Sarah, cleaning up the spilled coffee, found a small notebook under the counter where Karen had stood. It was leather-bound, expensive, with KM embossed on the cover. She flipped it open, curious, and her eyes widened. Pages were filled with meticulous notes, dates, times, names of employees, and complaints about service at various businesses. Rude cashier at grocery store, 10 halves, demanded refund. Waiter at Luigi's ignored me. October 5th, left no tip. Each entry was a grievance, a catalog of perceived slights. Sarah's stomach churned as she read one about Brood Awakening. Barista with nose ring, rude attitude, 10 out of 10. It was dated a week ago. Karen had been here before, targeting Mia. Sarah showed the notebook to Mia, who paled. "She's been watching me?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded, her jaw tight. "This isn't just about today. She's got some kind of vendetta." The revelation hit Mia like a second splash of coffee. Karen wasn't just a disgruntled customer. She was a predator, hunting for reasons to lash out. The thought made Mia's skin crawl, but also sparked something else, a resolve. She wasn't going to let this break her. Not today, not ever. Mia sat in the back room, the notebook open in her lap, its pages a map of Karen's grievances. Each entry felt like a tiny stab, a reminder that Karen's outburst wasn't random. It was calculated, part of a pattern. Mia's fingers traced the words rude attitude, her mind racing. Had Karen been watching her for weeks, waiting for a reason to explode? The thought made her stomach twist, but also lit a fire in her chest. She wasn't just a victim, she was a target, and that changed everything. Sarah poked her head in, her face a mix of concern and determination. "You don't have to go back out there today," she said. "Ethan and I can handle the rush." But Mia shook her head, closing the notebook with a snap. "No, I'm not hiding." She stood, brushing off her apron, the burn on her arm a dull ache now. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but if you need a break, just say so." Mia forced a smile, but inside, her thoughts were a storm. Karen had tried to break her, but Mia wasn't fragile. Not anymore. Back at the counter, the coffee shop was buzzing again, though the energy felt different, warier, like everyone was waiting for the next eruption. Ethan shot Mia a reassuring grin as he handed a customer a cappuccino. "You're tougher than you look," he said under his breath. Mia smirked, but her eyes kept darting to the door, half expecting Karen to storm back in. She didn't, of course. Karen was at the station, stewing in her own consequences. But the notebook lingered in Mia's mind, its existence a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Why keep such detailed records? What was Karen trying to prove? At the police station, Karen's bravado was crumbling. The holding room's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on her face. She sat across from her public defender, a young woman named Rachel with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Rachel skimmed the police report, her lips pursed. "You threw hot coffee at a barista," she said. Not a question. Karen bristled. "She provoked me." She rolled her eyes, disrespected me in front of everyone. Rachel didn't flinch. "Ma'am, the law doesn't care about our roles. You committed assault. There are witnesses, and the barista has burns." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came. Rachel leaned forward. "My advice? Take responsibility. It'll look better in court." Karen's hands clenched in her lap. Take responsibility? The idea was foreign, repulsive. She wasn't the one at fault. She was the customer, the one who deserved respect. But Rachel's words echoed in her head, mingling with the memory of the coffee splashing across Mia's apron. For a moment, Karen's mind flickered to her notebook, left behind at the shop. Her heart skipped. That notebook was her armor, her proof of the world's injustices. Without it, she felt exposed, vulnerable. She didn't mention it to Rachel. She couldn't. It was too personal, too raw. Back at Brood Awakening, the notebook became the center of a quiet investigation. Sarah photocopied the pages, her hands shaking slightly as she realized the scope of Karen's obsession. "This isn't normal," she muttered to Mia, handing her a copy. "She's been targeting people for months." Mia scanned the entries, her eyes narrowing at names she recognized. Local businesses, waiters, cashiers, all branded as rude or incompetent. One entry caught her breath. "Barista with nose ring. Ignore my order, 10/3." Mia hadn't ignored anyone. She remembered that day. She'd been swamped, rushing to keep up with orders. Karen had been there, silent, watching, waiting for a mistake. The twist deepened when Ethan, curious, did a quick search on his phone during a lull. "Guys," he said, his voice low, "check this out." He showed them a local news article from 6 months ago. A woman named Karen Mitchell had filed a lawsuit against the diner, claiming emotional distress over a waiter's rude behavior. The case was dismissed, but the article mentioned Karen's history of complaints, dozens of them, clogging small businesses with threats and demands. Mia's heart sank. Karen wasn't just angry. She was a serial complainer, thriving on conflict. The notebook wasn't just a record. It was a manifesto. Mia felt a surge of defiance. Karen thought she could intimidate her, break her down. But Mia had survived worse. Long shifts, late bills, a father who walked out when she was 10. She wasn't about to let Karen win. She turned to Sarah. "We need to show this to the police." Sarah nodded, her jaw set. "Already on it. I called Daniels. He's coming back tomorrow." Mia felt a flicker of hope, but also fear. Confronting Karen meant stepping into her world, a place of rage and retribution. Was she ready for that? The next morning, Brood Awakening felt like a different place. The usual hum of conversation was muted, the air thick with the aftermath of yesterday's chaos. Mia arrived early, her apron clean but her mind heavy. The burn on her arm was bandaged, a quiet reminder of Karen's outburst. Sarah was already there, the notebook locked in the office safe, waiting for Officer Daniels. Ethan, ever the optimist, tried to lighten the mood with a bad joke about Dekoff, but even he seemed on edge, his eyes flicking to the door every time it opened. Daniels arrived just after the morning rush, his expression grim. Sarah handed him the notebook, explaining its contents. "She's been targeting people for months," Sarah said, her voice steady but urgent. Mia was just the latest. Daniels flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing. "This is unusual," he said, choosing his words carefully. "It's not evidence of a crime, but it shows intent. We'll keep it for the investigation." Mia stood nearby, her arms crossed, feeling exposed under Daniels' gaze. "Will this help?" she asked. Daniels nodded. "It strengthens your case. Assault's serious, and this shows she's got a pattern." Across town, Karen sat in a small conference room at the courthouse, her lawyer Rachel by her side. The arraignment was looming, and Karen's nerves were frayed. She'd spent the night in a holding cell, her mind replaying the coffee shop incident in a loop. She hadn't meant to throw the coffee. It just happened, a reflex born of frustration. But now, facing assault charges, she felt the walls closing in. Rachel was blunt. "The prosecution has witnesses, physical evidence, and now this notebook. If you plead guilty, you might get a lighter sentence, community service, maybe a fine." Karen's eyes flashed. "Plead guilty? I'm not the criminal here." Rachel sighed, rubbing her temples. "Karen, you threw a hot drink at someone. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime." Karen's mind churned. The notebook. They had it. Her private thoughts, her catalog of slights, now in the hands of strangers. She felt violated, exposed. But more than that, she felt betrayed by the barista, by the police, by a world that refused to see her side. She leaned toward Rachel, her voice low. "They're blowing this out of proportion. I'm the one who was disrespected first." Rachel's patience was thinning. "Karen, the court doesn't care about disrespect. They care about actions. And your actions have consequences." Back at the coffee shop, Mia was struggling to keep her focus. Customers were kind. Some even tipped extra, whispering words of support, but the weight of the notebook lingered. During a break, she sat with Ethan, flipping through the photocopied pages. One entry stopped her cold. "Barista with nose ring. Laughed at me. 10 out of 7. Mia shook her head. "I never laughed at her. I don't even remember her from that day." Ethan frowned. "She's making it up, Mia. Or she's seeing things that aren't there." Mia's jaw tightened. Karen wasn't just angry. She was delusional, twisting reality to fit her narrative. It was terrifying and infuriating. The confrontation came sooner than expected. That afternoon, Karen's husband, a quiet man named Tom, showed up at Brood Awakening. He was older, with tired eyes and a nervous demeanor. "I'm here about my wife," he said to Sarah, his voice low. Mia overheard and stepped forward, her heart pounding. Tom looked at her, his expression a mix of shame and desperation. "I'm sorry for what Karen did," he said. "She's not herself lately. She's been under a lot of stress." Mia's anger flared, but she kept her voice steady. She threw coffee at me. She burned me. Stress doesn't excuse that. Tom flinched, nodding. I know. I wanted to apologize and ask if you'd consider dropping the charges. Mia's breath caught. Drop the charges? After everything? Sarah stepped in, her tone firm. That's not how this works. Your wife assaulted my employee. The police are handling it. Tom's shoulders sagged. I understand, he said, his voice barely audible. I just thought maybe there's a way to fix this. He left without another word, leaving Mia shaken. Ethan, watching from the counter, muttered, that guy's stuck in her storm. Mia nodded, but Tom's plea lingered, a crack in her resolve. What if Karen really was unraveling? Did that change anything? Mia couldn't shake Tom's visit. His tired eyes, his quiet plea. It humanized Karen in a way that made Mia uncomfortable. She wanted to hate Karen, to see her as a monster, but Tom's words painted a different picture. Stress, not herself. Was there more to Karen's outburst than entitlement? Mia pushed the thought away, focusing on the espresso machine, but it lingered, a nagging doubt that followed her through her shift. At the police station, Karen was unraveling. The arraignment was scheduled for the next day, and Rachel had warned her the evidence was damning. Witnesses, Burns, the notebook, it all pointed to guilt. Karen sat in her cell, her mind a battlefield of denial and fear. She wasn't a criminal. She was a mother, a wife, a woman who demanded respect in a world that constantly disrespected her. The coffee shop wasn't the first place she'd snapped, but it was the first time she'd faced real consequences. The notebook, her private record of injustices, was now her undoing. She'd never meant for anyone to see it, but it had been her anchor, proof that she wasn't crazy, that the world was out to get her. Back at Brood Awakening, Sarah called a meeting after closing. She, Mia, and Ethan sat around a table, the notebook's photocopies spread out like a crime scene. We need to decide what to do with this, Sarah said. The police have the original, but this could be bigger than just our case. Mia frowned. Bigger how? Sarah leaned forward, her voice low. Karen's been targeting businesses for months. If we share this with other shops, they could come forward. It might show the court she's a repeat offender. Ethan nodded, but Mia hesitated. What if it makes things worse? What if she comes after me again? Sarah's eyes softened. We'll protect you, Mia. But this isn't just about you. It's about stopping her. Mia's resolve hardened. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She thought of the other names in the notebook, the cashiers and waiters Karen had terrorized. Okay, she said finally. Let's do it. Sarah smiled, a rare moment of pride breaking through her exhaustion. They spent the next hour drafting emails to local businesses, attaching scan pages of the notebook. By the time they finished, Mia felt a strange mix of fear and empowerment. She was taking a stand, but she knew it came with a cost. The next day, the courthouse was a pressure cooker. Karen stood before the judge, her face pale, her hands trembling. Rachel had convinced her to plead guilty to a lesser charge, misdemeanor assault, in exchange for no jail time, community service, a fine, and a restraining order keeping her away from Brood Awakening. Karen nodded stiffly as the judge read the terms, her eyes fixed on the floor. She wanted to scream, to tell the world she was the victim, but Rachel's warning echoed in her head, don't make this worse. So she stayed silent, her pride a bitter pill to swallow. Mia was there, sitting in the back with Sarah. She hadn't wanted to come, but Sarah insisted. You need to see this through, she'd said. Mia watched as Karen stood, her once commanding presence reduced to a defeated slump. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't. It felt hollow, like watching a storm fizzle out after tearing through everything in its path. The judge's gavel fell, and it was over. Karen was let out, her eyes avoiding Mia's. For a moment, their gazes almost met, and Mia saw something, regret, maybe, or shame. Then it was gone. But the twist wasn't over. That evening, a local news van pulled up outside Brood Awakening. The email Sarah sent had worked too well. Businesses across town had come forward with stories of Karen's complaints, her threats, her lawsuits. A reporter, a sharp woman named Lisa, wanted Mia's story. You're the one who stood up to her, Lisa said, her camera crew setting up. Mia froze. She didn't want to be a headline, didn't want her face plastered on TV. But Sarah squeezed her shoulder. You can do this. Tell the truth. Mia took a deep breath, her heart pounding. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every barista, every cashier, every person Karen had tried to break. The news crew transformed Brood Awakening into a makeshift studio, their lights casting stark shadows across the counter. Mia stood awkwardly, her apron still on, as Lisa prepped her for the interview. Just be honest, Lisa said, her voice warm but professional. People need to hear your side. Mia nodded, her throat tight. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, but the notebook, now public knowledge, had turned Karen's outburst into a local scandal. Businesses were coming forward, their stories mirroring Mia's. A cashier berated for a slow line, a waiter sued for a spilled drink. Karen's pattern was undeniable, and Mia was the spark that lit the fire. The interview was brief but intense. Lisa asked about the incident, the coffee, the notebook. Mia's voice shook at first, but as she spoke, her confidence grew. She didn't just throw coffee at me, Mia said, her eyes steady. She tried to make me feel small, like I was nothing. But I'm not nothing. None of us are. Lisa nodded, her expression encouraging. When the camera stopped rolling, she squeezed Mia's hand. That was powerful. This is going to resonate. Mia managed a small smile, but inside, she was reeling. She just put her story out there, raw and unfiltered for the world to see. At home, Karen watched the broadcast from her living room, her face pale. Tom sat beside her, silent, his hands clasped tightly. The screen showed Mia, her voice steady, her words cutting deeper than Karen expected. She's lying, Karen muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. Tom didn't respond, his eyes fixed on the TV. The reporter mentioned the notebook, the dozens of complaints, the pattern of aggression. Karen's stomach churned. Her private thoughts, her shield against the world, were now a weapon turned against her. She wanted to scream, to call the station and demand retraction, but Tom's hand on hers stopped her. Enough, Karen, he said quietly. It's over. But it wasn't over. The community service order came with 100 hours at a local shelter, a place Karen had never set foot in. Her first day was a shock. Greasy tables, the smell of unwashed clothes, people who looked at her with quiet resentment. She was tasked with serving meals, her manicured nails a stark contrast to the chipped trays. The shelter's director, a no-nonsense woman named Clara, watched her closely. You're here to help, not to judge, Clara said, her tone firm. Karen nodded, but inside she was seething. This was beneath her. She wasn't like these people. She was better. Yet, as the days passed, something shifted. Karen noticed the shelter's clients, people like Maria, a single mother who thanked her for every plate, or James, an older man who told stories of better days. Their gratitude, their resilience, chipped away at her defenses. One evening, Maria asked Karen why she was there. Karen hesitated, then told the truth, her voice low. I lost my temper. Did something stupid. Maria didn't judge, just nodded. We all mess up, she said. It's what you do after that counts. Karen's throat tightened. For the first time, she saw herself through someone else's eyes. Not a victim, but a person who'd hurt others. Back at Brood Awakening, Mia was finding her own strength. The news story had brought a wave of support. Customers leaving bigger tips, strangers sharing their own stories of entitled customers. But it also brought scrutiny. Some online comments called Mia dramatic, accusing her of blowing the incident out of proportion. She should have just taken the eye roll, one post read. Mia tried to ignore it, but the words stung. Ethan, ever loyal, told her to focus on the positive. You stood up to a bully, he said. That's what matters. Mia nodded, but the doubt lingered. Had she done the right thing, or had she just made herself a target? The shelter became Karen's unexpected reckoning. One day, Clara pulled her aside. You're different lately, she said. Less angry. Karen blinked, caught off guard. Was she? She thought of Maria, of James, of the countless faces she'd served. They weren't the enemy. They were just people. Like her. The realization was a quiet earthquake, shaking the foundations of her worldview. She wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet, but the anger that had fueled her for so long was starting to feel heavy, like a weight she could put down. Karen's community service hours ticked by slowly, each one a lesson in humility. The shelter's rhythm, its chaos, its kindness, forced her to confront parts of herself she'd buried under layers of entitlement. Maria's words echoed in her mind. It's what you do after that counts. Karen wasn't sure what after looked like, but for the first time, she wanted to find out. She started listening to the shelter's clients, their stories weaving into her own. James, with his gap-toothed smile, told her about losing his job, his home, his hope. Maria spoke of raising her daughter alone, scraping by on odd jobs. Karen didn't pity them. She admired them. Their strength made her own complaints feel small, petty. At Brood Awakening, Mia was rebuilding too. The news story had faded, but its impact lingered. Customers now greeted her by name, some with quiet respect, others with curiosity. She'd become a symbol, not just a barista. It was overwhelming, but it also gave her purpose. She started a tip jar for a local charity, a small way to pay forward the support she'd received. Ethan decorated it with a cheesy slogan, "Brew Kindness." Mia rolled her eyes but laughed, the first real laugh in weeks. She was healing, slowly, the burn on her arm now a faint scar, a reminder of what she'd overcome. Karen's final day at the shelter was quiet. She served meals, cleaned tables, and said goodbye to Maria and James. Clara handed her a certificate of completion, her eyes warm. "You did good work," she said. Karen nodded, her throat tight. She didn't feel good, not yet, but she felt different, lighter. As she left, Maria hugged her, a quick, fierce embrace. "Keep going," Maria whispered. Karen didn't trust herself to speak, so she just nodded, clutching the certificate like a lifeline. Outside, the autumn air was crisp, the world somehow brighter. She thought of the notebook, now in police evidence, and realized she didn't need it anymore. It was a relic of a version of herself she was ready to leave behind. Mia, too, was moving forward. One evening, after closing, she sat with Sarah and Ethan, the coffee shop empty and quiet. "I'm thinking of going back to school," Mia said, her voice tentative. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "For what?" Mia smiled, a spark in her eyes. "Social work? Maybe. I want to help people like the ones who helped me through this." Ethan grinned. "You're going to be awesome at that." Sarah nodded, her eyes misty. "You already are." Mia felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of purpose she hadn't known she'd been searching for. Karen's attack had tried to break her, but instead, it had shown her what she was capable of. Across town, Karen sat at her kitchen table, a blank notebook in front of her. Not for complaints this time, but for something new. She wrote a single word: change. It was a start, a promise to herself. She thought of Mia, the barista she'd hurt, and felt a pang of regret, so sharp it took her breath away. She didn't know if she'd ever make amends, but she wanted to try. Maybe not with Mia directly. The restraining order made that impossible, but with the world. She wanted to be better, to listen, to see people as people, not obstacles. Mia's life took on new color. She enrolled in night classes, balancing work and study with a determination that surprised even her. The coffee shop became her anchor, a place where she wasn't just a barista, but a survivor, a fighter. Customers shared their own stories of standing up, of finding strength in small moments. One day, a regular left a note with her tip. "You inspired me to speak up at work. Thank you." Mia tucked it into her pocket, her heart full. She didn't know Karen's journey, didn't know the woman was grappling with her own redemption. But she didn't need to. Mia's victory wasn't in Karen's defeat. It was in her own growth, her refusal to be defined by one terrible moment. The world kept turning, the coffee shop kept brewing, and two women, forever linked by a single act, found their own paths to healing. One learned to let go of her anger, the other to embrace her strength. And in the quiet moments, when the steam hissed and the cups clinked, they both found something they hadn't expected: hope.